Just a second. So can you see my my presentation? Is it available for everybody?
Perfect, Frans.
Yeah, thank you so much. So sorry for the slight hiccup. I assume Thomas has some technical difficulties, and maybe somehow he got thrown off the network. I don't know exactly, but let me just take over from Thomas and do a short introduction about CBI. CBI is the Center for the Promotion of Imports from Developing Countries. You might know them through their development programs and export assistance programs. Today, we're going to talk about this sustainable transition in apparel and home textiles. This is a new study commissioned by CBI and carried out by myself, Frans Tilstra, and as I mentioned, my colleague, Giovanni Beatrice. So this is the program for today. There was a short introduction by Thomas Funk, a very short introduction. So and next we will talk about the sustainable transition, opportunities and consequences by Giovanni and myself. And then in 45 minutes, we will do a short case study about Egypt. This is also part of the study that's going to be published online on the CBI website. And afterwards, there's opportunity to ask questions and opportunity for us to answer questions. And when Thomas manages to get back online, then there will be some closing remarks on behalf of CBI. So as you see in the program, we have scheduled the questions and answers section at the end of the presentation, but we might improvise a little bit and maybe do some questions and answers in between, because Giovanni and I are going to change presentations a little bit. So there might be an earlier occasion to answer questions and get them answered. So first of all, this is me, Frans Tilstra. I'm a market researcher working for CBI in the apparel and home textiles sector. I have a special interest in sustainability and innovation, always very interesting topics. So I'm happy to talk about sustainability today. And this is my colleague, Giovanni Beatrice. Giovanni, could you introduce yourself maybe for a couple of seconds?
Yes, hello everybody. So my name is Giovanni Beatrice, and I've been working in the apparel industry for over 30 years. Since 2013 as a consultant for CBI. Our company name is Forward in Fashion, and we are involved in many programs on behalf of CBI in countries like Jordan, Ethiopia, Morocco, and we help and advise industries and private sector on realizing their export potential.
Thanks so much. So the sustainable transition is what we're going to talk about today, and I'm very glad that you all tuned in. So so thank you for your attention. It's a very broad but also a very important topic. I'm sure you're all familiar with the whole concept of sustainability. It's not something new, but it's maybe for the first time in recent years that we're talking about an actual transition, a transition of the industry. So yesterday I was in my car listening to the radio, and it was funny because it was a new show talking about new legislation being introduced in the Netherlands, a new proposal for new legislation about due diligence, making it obligatory for buying companies in the Netherlands to do their due diligence. And it basically means they need to do the research on how their products are made, under what circumstances, all the way back into the value chain. And this is not incidental. This is part of a broader development. In recent years, there have been on EU level, but also on national level, and in many different countries, there have been new proposed legislation and new legislation introduced about making it mandatory for European buying companies to find out all the way through their entire value chain how their products are made. And obviously, this has major consequences for manufacturers worldwide. So before we continue, I would like to do a little interactive bit with you. I have a poll prepared, and I will launch it right now because Giovanni and I, we're very curious what you think is top priority for European buyers. What's on their mind when they think about sustainable procurement? I will launch the poll right now, and I will give you half a minute to think about it and give your answer. There's 5 options. You can choose one. So I'm very curious what you think is top priority for European buyers regarding sustainability. See answers coming in right now. Excellent. I'll give you a couple of more seconds and then share the results. So yeah, I think I will close the poll right now because I don't see any major changes anymore in the answers. So thank you for voting. I will close it right now and I will share the results with you. So this is interesting, the poll results. So we see about equal votes for safe working conditions, recycling / the circular economy, transparency. There's 15% of you voted for pollution as top priority for buyers, and there's living wage issues in last place with 11%. Well, first of all, I don't think there's one answer. I mean, we can generalize, but basically every buyer has their own priorities, of course. But it doesn't surprise me much that transparency tops the list, because I think transparency is very important right now in the discussion in Europe about sustainability. It's all about transparency and traceability. Buyers pressured to find out what's happening in their value chain, and not just at the first tier, but also at the second and the third. We will see later on in this presentation that there's new legislation and new agreements in the workings that they comply, that oblige buyers to really find out what's happening in their value chain, all the way up to how the raw materials are made. So we will talk about this later in the presentation. But so it's I think I can really understand these answers. Recycling, circular economy, also very important topic, top of mind with many EU buyers, and also in terms of legislation. For instance, the EU Green Deal, we will talk about it later on. A very important topic now and also in the coming years. Safe working conditions, I can understand, especially after what happened in 2013 in Bangladesh, Rana Plaza. It's still a very important topic. But pollution and living wage as well. Sometimes these answers, they also apply to different countries. You see, for instance, living wage is especially a very sensitive topic in a country like Germany. So it can also differ a little bit concerning the country that you're doing business with. So let me hide the poll. Thank you for voting, and let me continue with the presentation. So first of all, we're talking about a sustainable transition. We're talking about something that's not nice to have, it's a need to have. There is a sort of regime change happening right now concerning sustainability. And the idea of a transition of an industry working according to new rules, it's not something new, and it's not something new in the apparel and home textiles industry. When you look back in history, we can see in the 1970s, the first big transition was outsourcing production to Asia. And when that proved to be a sound business case, we saw a second transition, namely ever more buyers doing or trying to do direct business, setting up offices in Asia to do direct business with Asia. The whole consequence of this outsourcing was that not only buyers but also European governments, they lost insight on how products were manufactured, so to speak. So with the outsourcing came a loss of insight and a loss of control on how products are being made. Then in the 1990s, we saw another transition, the transition to fast fashion. Ever faster production, manufacturers close to the markets becoming ever more important, and producing ever more collections per year. And then after the year 2000, we see a focus on consumer safety on EU level, product safety directives. REACH was introduced, legislation and requirements on and restrictions on chemicals, the use of chemicals, and also new initiatives concerning safe working conditions and the environment. Standards like BSCI, ETI, REP, they were all introduced after the year 2000. So did it help? Did it make the industry safer? Yeah, to some extent it did help, but it couldn't prevent something like the Rana Plaza building disaster that we all know about in 2013. And we see after Rana Plaza, that was really a changing moment for the industry and also for governments in the EU. In recent years, there have been many government interventions have been introduced. So I'm talking about legal measures, but also economic incentives, broad plans for the future of the industry to become more sustainable. And that's why we talk today about a sustainable transition. So some legal and non-legal measures in detail. On the one hand, we have industry pledges. So the industry is not sitting still or anything. You have industry pledges like the 100% sustainable cotton pledge from Textile Change. There you have like 50 bigger European buyers pledging to use ever more sustainable cotton and the most sustainable cotton possible in 2025. So that's only 4 years from now. This is heavily focused on organic cotton, but also on more sustainable cotton. And there's also industry pledges concerning CO2 emissions, for instance. This in particular is a pledge by 40 of the bigger European buyers. So you see all kinds of industry initiatives popping up in recent years. On the other hand, we have EU and national programs. So for instance, there are industry agreements between governments and industry associations. I'm thinking in particular of the German Textilbündnis and also a similar agreement in the Netherlands. We have new national and EU level due diligence laws introduced and being introduced, and new law proposals being introduced. I've talked a little bit about that in my first slide. Then there's a Green Deal. This is an economic incentives program. Basically, the EU has an ambition to be the first climate neutral continent by 2050. And you can expect a lot of new regulations being proposed under this umbrella Green Deal in the coming years. Some examples, a carbon border tax, extensive producer responsibility, making producers financially responsible for textiles and home textiles. during the full life cycle of the product. And there's also something like the right to repair for consumers. It's in the making. So the first focus is on appliances, but apparel and textiles is also in focus of the EU. So these are the kinds of legal measures and new regulations that you can expect in coming years to come about. And obviously they will have major consequences for manufacturers worldwide. So standards, I've talked a little bit about standards already. There are many, as you may know, and they are not all mandatory, of course, but we see that certain standards, especially BSCI and REP, they are very, very popular. And for many European buyers, especially the bigger brands and retailers, standards like BSCI are virtually mandatory. So if you don't have BSCI, you may find it very, very difficult to do business with a large percentage of EU buyers. There's also this ZDHC, which is more focused on web processing and chemicals, and REACH, of course, which is mandatory. So a little bit about the root causes. Why are we talking about making the industry sustainable in the first place? Well, I think it's basically because we are still living in a paradigm where the take, make, waste model is being used by most manufacturers and also buyers. So the whole industry is still dominated by the take, make, waste model. This has many negative impacts on not just people, but also the environment and animals for sure. So I'm not going to name all the facts that you see here, but this is just an overview of the negative impacts that are associated with the global apparel and textiles industry. You can also find this in the study that's going to be published on the CBI website. So for more background information, I would like to advise you to read the study as well. Talking about priorities, of course, there are many. This is just a short list of top priorities for European buyers concerning different phases in the value chain, so to speak. So I'm not going to talk about all these, but you see that the broad themes are people, environment, and animals. And concerning animals, it concerns the raw material phase primarily, but those also the wet processing, the weaving, the knitting, and the dyeing, where many issues are in focus there. Of course, manufacturing, issues like living wage, safe working conditions, excessive overtime, gender equality, child labor, of course, always a sensitive issue for European buyers. And then there's chemical use, energy use, all things having to do with climate change. And basically, through all phases, circularity is becoming ever more important for European buyers. And then there's an umbrella development concerning transparency and traceability that we've already talked about. Because obviously, if you don't know what's happening in your value chain, it's really hard to mitigate or to assess and to mitigate any risks. So some practical information. This is a website that I wanted to show you. Maybe you're already familiar with it. It's called the CSR Risk Check. It's a very nice website. It's been run by MVO Nederland, which is an organization from the Netherlands. And this is basically a database with over, I believe, 10,000 open sources on the CSR risks that are associated with many different production countries. And this is quite a popular tool for European buyers. So if they want to do their due diligence, and in some instances, this is mandatory. For instance, in the Netherlands, if companies want to apply for certain subsidies, they need to use this risk check to do their due diligence. And this gives them an insight in the CSR risk and the sustainability risk that are associated with many different manufacturing countries. And it's a really practical tool. So I would like to advise you to check it out one time. It gives you a number of risks associated with different processes in the whole manufacturing process, and it also gives you advice on how to mitigate these risks, accompanied by sources for more background information. So this is just a very nice and practical tool that you may use to find out how buyers may be viewing the country and the industry that you are working in. So I've been talking about due diligence already, and I think it's important to realize, as I just mentioned, that there's ever more pressure on European buyers to do their due diligence, to research their value chains, and to find out what's happening there. So, and not just in the first tier, not just in the factories, but also in the factories supplying their factories all the way up to the raw materials. So first of all, this means that companies, they need to embed CSR into their policies and also into their management systems. This is not just some standalone issue for European buyers. They are increasingly making CSR and due diligence an integral part of doing business. They will assess negative impacts all throughout the value chain. They will try to seize, prevent, or mitigate risks. So they may not immediately cancel orders where something is wrong. I mean, in many instances, they are stimulated to engage with their manufacturers and try to improve the situation. It's important that they track results. They will have to show for their results and their research. And you also see many more EU buyers investing in communication with their stakeholders. And throughout the industry, you see ever more platforms for cooperation. For instance, the industry agreements that I talked about, and also the industry pledges. So you see pre-competitive cooperation throughout the industry becoming increasingly important in the EU. So change is opportunity. That is something that my colleague Giovanni always says. So Gio, I would like to invite you to take it from here.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Frans, for explaining all the rules and regulations. And honestly, I always try to look at things from a more commercial perspective. And rules and regulations always sound like a limitation on what I want to achieve in case I am a manufacturer of apparel. But especially the CSR and sustainability related rules and regulations must not need to be rules and regulations. When I was talking to manufacturers, I always felt very comfortable if I was talking to a manufacturer that showed me his sustainable principles. So what did he feel was important? Because that for me was a guarantee that when I left, he would still continue to keep the sustainable standard we discussed and not change it to the standard of the next buyer who might be different from mine. So sustainability starts with principles, personal principles. That is how I look at it. So change is opportunity, and we're facing a lot of change right now. The sustainable transition is one. But also, what is a problem is COVID, of course. We're all facing COVID problems, and this is forcing us to change. And we see it on the side of the buyer, and we see it on the side of the manufacturer. So change is opportunity, but it's only opportunity when we're willing to change ourselves and adapt to the new situation. So transparency, as Frans also explained, is we want to have insight in how things are manufactured and where things are manufactured. And do we agree that the way it's manufactured is up to our standards? This is not only a rule and regulation by the buyer, by the government, but also by the consumer. There have been several tests in where people showed that a t-shirt, a specific t-shirt, was made by in really bad working conditions, and consumers stopped buying it. So it's an important thing. Transparency. It's where it all starts. Without transparency, we cannot check on anything. So then sustainable materials. That is the first big opportunity in the market. There's a big demand for sustainable materials. It starts with organic cotton. The demand for organic cotton is bigger than the supply. So sustainable materials, recycled materials, it's all a big opportunity. Dyeing, as you all know, there is a lot of chemicals being used in dyeing, but there are also sustainable alternatives. And people always ask me, Gio, how can I open a door to a new buyer? Well, showing a new buyer that you are ahead of the requirements is a way to open doors. Showing the buyer that you deliver a good quality and on time is non-negotiable. That does not make you special. So look for innovations that might give you the little bit of extra you need to open doors. And CO2 dyeing, it's dyeing without water, or foam dyeing in the denim, is a very sustainable way to dye. And it's CO2 dyeing is specifically for polyesters. So alternative ways of dyeing, reducing the use of water, reducing the use of chemicals, is a way to open doors to new buyers. Replacing chemical dyes by ecological dyes, it's a very good alternative way, which is more sustainable. Of course, circularity, everybody's talking about circularity, not only because we're facing a huge waste problem, but also because our government is introducing new rules and regulations that force us to recycle our waste. And circularity, we'll talk more about it later, offers big opportunities, but you need to adapt. Digitalization, we see it all over, no matter in what business we are. Measuring your performance, measuring your costs, measuring your efficiency, measuring your sales will enable you to do better next time. So digitalization is also very important on every level of the supply chain. Made to market demand, this is one of my favorites. It's what I feel is a big opportunity, is let's start making what the market wants. Now the majority part is just designing, producing huge quantities, and then pushing the market to buy what has been designed and manufactured. What if we turn it around? Yeah, there are some. We'll show you later some really good examples of made-to-market demand. Of course, clean shipping. There are alternative ways, trucking instead of shipping. Train. There are some alternative ways with a lesser impact on environment that also offer opportunity. Next slide, Frans. Okay, so if we look at sustainable materials, Modint, which is a trade organization in the Netherlands, has created an overview and categorized different sustainable materials. We have sustainable materials with no impact on the environment. We have sustainable materials with still an impact on the environment, and those have been categorized in best, better, preferred, and conventional. And this is a good example. If you're interested in starting to use sustainable materials, this is a good guideline to start your sourcing for sustainable materials. And recycled cotton, for example, some people say, but recycled cotton is still very difficult to use. It depends on what product category you're manufacturing. Heavy knits, You can use a lot of recycled cotton and denim trousers, but you need to do your sourcing. Recycled wool, recycled cashmere is available in the market. Recycled polyester, we all know the recycled polyester, which also the demand is bigger than the supply. They take the bottles from the ocean and recycle it into new yarns. Chemically recycled polyamide. So there is a lot of things going on in sustainable materials. And what I always advise is, if you select and purchase and source a sustainable material, always try to find out in what way and how much you minimize the impact or you improve the impact on the environment. So it's easy to say my wool is organic, but what does it mean? Yeah, show it. How much less water was used to dye it? How were the animals treated? So show it to the buyer. That is also a way to open doors to new buyers. Next one, Frans. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about recycle. Many people think that closing the loop means that a product is being manufactured, sold, after use, we recycle it into a new yarn and then make a similar product. Well, that is a technique that is possible currently, for knitwear, but for most of the product, it's still very complicated because the yarn gets unstable. The yarn length becomes short, and the characteristics of the fabric made from a 100% recycled yarn do not comply to our standard. So a lot of companies are innovating, are researching, are developing new techniques to recycle our waste. What does it mean? We're also focused on our waste, and we have a lot of waste. It means that the value of waste will increase. Yeah, waste has value, although we're all struggling with the waste. But with waste, we can do more than only the recycle. We can refuse. There's a big discussion going on replacing specific materials with a bad environmental impact, and making sure that we just use less than we're currently using. We all know the story about everybody has 10 t-shirts in the closet, but actually we're only wearing 4 out of the 10. So why do we want those t-shirts? So refuse is one of those ways to create a change. Rethink is one. We need to think about everything that we are manufacturing. Reduce. We need to use less. Reuse. This is one of the most interesting one because the second-hand market is growing massively. Before, selling a t-shirt online or buying a used t-shirt online was not very favored by the consumers. Now that mindset is changing. People like to buy second-hand garments. What does it mean for manufacturers? How can you benefit from a growing second-hand market if you make products based on virgin material? We'll show you later. Then repair. Why do we throw things away after one season? Why can't we reuse them even though they're broke? Yeah, you can repair them and resell them. Refurbish. Refurbish is we can restore. You see that some products which are broken after use can be repaired and cleaned and made new again. There are some brands like North Face and Tommy Hilfiger that are already opening stores selling refurbished products. And then we have some more: remanufacture, repurpose, recycle, recover. Well, what we want to say with this is study the different ways to improve the life cycle of a product, because recycle is happening. It's forced upon us by government, by consumers, and this is a big, big opportunity. Next one, please. Okay, what does it mean? How is the market coping with these changes? Let's have a look at the market concepts right now. We have 2 in general. We have retail and we have online sales. That is the way products are being sold to consumers. We do it in the traditional way. We buy, We develop, we buy, and we sell. Yeah. But what is changing now? For example, take back. We have brands that realize the value, the future value of waste. So H&M, Zara, Inditex, they all started to collect waste in their stores. Perhaps not because they are currently able to use it all to recycle it. Some is going to charity, but in future they will. In future they will be able to recycle all the waste. And by setting up and controlling this supply chain, creating a circular business model, you will be sure that if you start selling recycled products, you are controlling the products that you need to recycle and bring and sell new products again. So investing in a take-back system, which more and more companies are doing, is a really smart way to do it. What does it mean for the manufacturer? Well, you have manufactured your product, you deliver to the customer, now the customer takes back and has this waste to be recycled. So how can you adapt as a manufacturer to this future new kind of manufacturing? You need to be able to take back also and recycle. That would be the ideal manufacturer, future manufacturer for the EU retail. Not yours to keep is also a good thing. We realize that we buy, we use 1 season, 2 seasons, and then we got fed up of the product and we throw it away, or we sell it on the second-hand market, but many people feel that's also a big headache. So there's a new concept saying, well, let's lease, just pay a monthly fee, and then when you're fed up with the product, give it back and somebody else can use it. So you don't buy to keep. You lease a product, not yours to keep. We make what you need is make to the market demands and not to what you feel in the future will be selling. Right? What the consumer needs will be manufactured, not more, not less. Your waste is our responsibility. That is what I try to explain. The waste is an opportunity. As a manufacturer, you need to focus on the waste of your customer and how you will service him with recycling his waste. Next slide, Frans. So this is an example of a company based in the Netherlands called Wolkat. I really like this company. They're very innovative. They have a factory in Morocco recycling post-consumer waste. Initially, they manufactured these blankets. We all know them, blankets used for moving or storage. Now they make the most beautiful fabrics, woven fabrics, can be used for bags, can be used for apparel, for garments. And what they do is they offer the customer the possibility to put a bin in the store. So they say, listen, customer, do you want to close the loop? Well, we put a bin in your store. The consumers can come and throw their used garment in the bin. We'll take it back, we'll recycle it in Morocco, spin, weave, or knit, and make new garments out of it. So this is a full cycle concept, which actually many more manufacturers abroad can also focus on. Next one. So this is the company I was talking about. It's called Mud Jeans. It's really a growing and popular company in the Netherlands because it's focused on sustainability. It's recycling the jeans, the denim. They realize the value of the waste. So they're also leasing the jeans. You pay a monthly fee, I don't know, 7-8 euro a month, and the jeans is not yours to keep. So after use, you just give it back and you can select another one. Next one. This is a company that started before the recession, and they did suits and shirts. We all know made to measure makes you feel special. You pay a big price because a tailor in Italy or tailor in London is making everything according to your sizes. They commercialized this concept. So you go into the store as a consumer, you select a shirt or a trouser or a jacket or a denim trouser or a sweater. They have many different products. You select your color, you select your yarn, you select your button, you place an order, you pay, and within 2 weeks you get your product delivered. And you might think this is an expensive product, but it isn't. It's made in China. It has the same price as all the other competing products. It's just made to measure. And just realize what it means. It means no stock in the retail. It means no risk for the retail. So made to measure is really part of the solution, the future solution. But it means as a manufacturer, instead of receiving one order of 10,000 pieces, you receive 10,000 unique orders. And you might think, but this is not efficient and this will cost me a lot of money. This company developed a manufacturing system making it really efficient to manufacture made to measure products. A big opportunity. Next one. Your waste is our responsibility. The North Face is one of the brands that selected all these new trends. They researched all these new trends, looked at recycle and said, we're not going to focus now on recycle, we're going to focus on refurbish, which means you buy a jacket, it's expensive jacket, 300, 400, 500 euro, and North Face tells you, well, if you bring it back, it still represents value. You get a discount on your new purchase, or you get money, and they take back the product. The product is being refurbished, cleaned, repaired, and sold again. What does it mean? Jackets are manufactured in China. Do you think that the customer will send the jacket back to China to be refurbished? No. They will find and look for solutions nearby. So I believe that the first generation of products might be manufactured in Bangladesh or China based on virgin materials. But then we have a second generation of products, which are the refurbished products, and they will be refurbished in countries surrounding Europe, even in Europe. Next one. Next slide, Frans. Yeah. So what trends? I always look at trends. I always look at international trends that might influence the business. And there is more. We have governmental trends, we have consumer trends. But if we look now at the main trends, one of the main trends I feel is causing a big change is the new environmental regulations that were introduced in China, causing 80,000 factories to close down because they're unable to comply. What does it mean? China is the #1 exporter to Europe. Buyers are forced to move. Buyers are forced to look for alternative manufacturing solutions. And doing business in China is getting more complicated. Before, everything was possible. Now it's just getting more complicated. Also, because the local market is growing. The demand for local market is growing. And the Chinese manufacturer prefer supplying the local market instead of the difficult EU market. So doing business in China is getting more complicated, and you see business moving to new countries like Myanmar, like Vietnam, like new markets, Ethiopia. Buyers are sourcing new countries. Then we have the trade war between US and China. And US tries to promote their own manufacturer in their own country, which also influences the business. We are facing the political instability in Turkey. People realize that for the fast fashion, and don't forget that Turkey is the #4 biggest exporting country to the EU. China #1, Turkey is #4. So Turkey, we depend a lot on Turkey on our fast fashion. What other country can do it? Yeah, well, there's only one country actually that could do it, which is Egypt, because they have their own fabric manufacturing and their own cotton. But next to Egypt, Turkey is very unique in the market. So what do we do once the political situation is becoming very unstable, or the environment of doing business is becoming very difficult? We're facing new environmental regulations, which makes a big change. Then, of course, the need for speed. Zara has proven to be more successful than H&M. Zara is focusing 60% on the right product, having the right product at the right moment in the store. They're producing 60% in and around Europe, where H&M is still focused for 90% on faraway manufacturing. So you need to guess what it will be 4 months in advance. Zara is more profitable than H&M. We are confronted with supply chain transparency. When I started in the business, price was the most important thing. People didn't care where and how things were manufactured. Now that is impossible. You need to open up everything. We are facing with social compliance and of course COVID-19. COVID-19 currently is creating all kinds of alternatives. People are moving towards nearby countries. They don't want to place orders 6 months in advance. They are looking for flexibility. They want low quantities. They want to be able to cancel the orders, extended payment conditions. So COVID-19 is not only changing the moment, but it's also changing the future. And you need to realize as a manufacturer, what does it mean for you? How can you create an opportunity based on this, well, what seems to be a big problem right now? Next slide, Frans. So the role of developing economies and producers. We do programs in different countries. And the first question always manufacturers have is, Gio, how can we get in touch with buyers? Well, first thing I reply is download our report, how to do business, how to find buyers in Europe on the CBI website, because that's filled with a lot of practical tips. But people say, well, I have on-time delivery, I comply, I'm certified, I'm sustainable, but still I don't do a lot of business. So what can I do, Gio? The first thing which makes the difference, which makes you more profitable, which makes you more successful is service level. Service level communication is part of the service level. If you have the most beautiful factory, the cheapest products, the most sustainable setup, but you are unable to service your customer the way they want it, you cannot earn money. If you have a perfect service level and a lousy factory, I can guarantee you there's always business to be made. People want to feel comfortable. They want a no headache supplier. They want to feel that everything is going smoothly according to their expectations. Focus on your service level and especially your communication. Then of course we have others. Design is also a service level. Design is always a complicated thing because it can cost you a lot of money developing these products. I always believe it starts with sourcing. Source good fabrics to inspire your buyers. Yeah, make sure you confront him with new fabric sourcing every month. So that would be my first suggestion. And then once you start to get to know your buyer and the market, try to start also with your designing. Product development. I always advise factories, if you know this product is selling well for your customer, you delivered 10,000 pieces and you were talking to your buyer and your buyer says, it's selling so well, make 2, 3, 4 variations on that product. And then the buyer is more likely to place another order. Efficiency, currently, I'm very sorry to tell you, but efficiency can be the difference between being able to compete, earning money or losing money, and not being able to compete. I see countries with a minimum wage of $50 and still not getting any business because the efficiency is very, very low. And on the other side, I see countries like Turkey, for example, with a relatively high minimum wage, but with a high efficiency and therefore very able to compete. Efficiency throughout the entire organization needs to be top priority. Sourcing is where you can earn good and relatively easy money, especially by combining sourcing. If you have just one manufacturer sourcing in Turkey, why not cooperate with other manufacturers in your same country? Collective sourcing will enable you to buy cheaper and also to be more powerful. Sales and marketing, well, this is, I feel, very underestimated. Sales and marketing is needs to be continuous process. Many times I see factories that start to do sales and marketing once they lose a customer. Sales and marketing needs to be a continuous process. You always need to be working and investing in promoting your organization, promoting your products, promoting your factory to targeted markets. Then, of course, certification, non-negotiable. If you're not certified, it's very, very complicated to supply the market with mainstream production. Long-term strategy. So these were the quick wins. If you want to improve, then please focus on these points. Long-term strategies, of course, innovate and automate. Automate relates to production efficiency. Innovate will enable you to have a different proposal from your competitors. If you have specific techniques to show, then most probably you can do things better or easier or different, which will make you different as a supplier. Invest in social and environmental compliance. Don't see it as a burden. A lot of environmental compliance and social compliance will create a better working condition for the workers you have in your factory. So that is an investment that's worthwhile. Supply chain transparency, as I explained in the beginning, people didn't care how things were manufactured. Now you need to offer full transparency in your supply chain. As a manufacturer, you're not only responsible for the product you make, but you're responsible for every step in the entire supply chain. How the yarns, how the fabrics, how the cotton is grown, it's all your responsibility. Speed to market, even though you're based in Bangladesh or China or other countries, speed to market is very important. I see a jersey being manufactured in 45 days coming from Bangladesh. Turkey is even manufacturing in 4 weeks. Speed to market relates to having the right product in the store at the right time, which is more and more important. Full concept manufacturing. We already showed you that the clients are taking back the second-hand garments. Yeah, we have a waste problem. So think about different ways to take back the waste and help your customer to create a closed loop supply chain. That relates also to the circular economy. So circular economy is definitely one of the biggest opportunities the market has to offer right now. Next one, Frans.
Gio, we need to speed up a little bit because we also need to talk about Egypt for a bit and do some questions and answers. So
I will.
Okay, thanks.
Can you show me the next slide, Frans?
I already went to the next slide. Maybe there's a slight delay on the network, but you should be able to see it.
No, I have it. Yeah. The role
Okay.
of developing countries supporting organizations. Every industry in developing country has supporting organizations, but we also have supporting organizations. I mentioned Modin, for example, a sector organization. These organizations are the bridge between countries. And you need to use these organizations as a manufacturer, but you can also use these organizations as a customer or a way to get in to the business. As a manufacturer, you can contact Modins. They have 2,000 members, or MVO Nederland. They have many members and they can help you to do business. So what is important? Databases. No matter what you do, create a database. That's where the value is. You need to have market knowledge. Market knowledge enables you to help the customer and the manufacturer. You are the bridge between markets. Focus on market trends. Market trends is the market opportunity. Create a factory database. You need to know who is manufacturing what in your country. We discussed collective sourcing, help the manufacturers with pricing, costing, and collective sourcing. Train them on the importance of certification. a developing organization, the role of a support organization can also be design. Yeah, you can help them on how to read technical drawings, for example. Many manufacturers need help on efficiency improvements. Yeah, inform them about what's happening in the world on innovation. There are all kinds of organizations that, like Fashion for Good, that is a big database of innovative concepts in the entire supply chain. You need to sell your country. You need to sell your industry. You need to be online, showing the world what your country and the factories are able to do. Of course, sales and marketing. Again, this is a continuous process, and many manufacturers need help on the development of their skills. Management training, strategy, for example. Many factories just do what the customer wants. They don't have a strategy. Yeah, CSR is an important one. Of course, sustainability and environment. Take responsibility of the environment and teach the manufacturers on how to minimize the impact on the environment. Next slide, Frans. So, Egypt. I already talked a little bit about Egypt. Next slide, Frans. Personally, I love Egypt. I love Egypt because of the cultural heritage, and it's an apparel manufacturing where you can even combine your holidays with doing business. How cool is that? Egypt for me is an amazing country and very unique because, as I already explained, Egypt has this amazing long stapled cotton. One of the only countries next to Turkey that could do fast fashion business. But unfortunately, if we look at Egypt and we compare it to Turkey, there's still a long way to go. We see that a lot of manufacturers in Egypt are focused on CMT manufacturing and not FOB manufacturing. Yeah, which means that the buyers need to arrange all the materials, all the trims, everything, and that's a dying race. Buyers want the ease of doing business. Buyer wants to give an order to a manufacturer and they take care of everything. And it is possible in Egypt because they hold the most beautiful cotton. But guess what? Majority part of the cotton is exported. So exported as cottons to be processed in another country, where this is a unique selling point for Egypt as a country to use their own long stapled cotton. We even have examples of buyers who import cheap cotton from abroad to do cheap manufacturing in Egypt of cotton products. How stupid is that? So if we look at Egypt as a country, there is big potential, but there's also still a big challenge, especially on the sustainability part. So we created this SWOT overview mentioning all the strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats that you can have a look at. And well, again, also for Egypt, it is not easy to do business with Egypt. And that is the first dilemma for a buyer. The service level, focus on your service level, focus on your communication, and make the life of a buyer easy. FOB business, good communication, and good service level. That's where the short and quick wins are for Egypt. Next one. So, one of the biggest advantages of doing business is, besides the cotton in Egypt, is they have GSP towards the US and the EU. So, which means they can export without import duties. With China has 12% import duties to the EU and 33% import duties to the US. So how can China, with higher minimum wages, with import duties, be the #1 exporter to the EU? And Egypt, I don't know what position Egypt is, but it's not in the top 10 to the EU. So Egypt has so much potential that it's time that we start working on the improvements needed within the industry in order to take the role that Egypt could have within especially the fast fashion manufacturing. Next one, Frans. So, strategies for Egypt. Create awareness. Many buyers need to know about Egypt as a country. Yeah, focus on natural fibers of high quality. You have the most amazing cotton quality. Focus on development and using that cotton in your FOB manufacturing. Organic. Try to create a transition within the growth of your cotton and go more towards organic cotton, which is of higher value in the supply chain. Invest in branding. You see several countries, Ethiopia and leather, for example, they brand the specialty of their raw materials. So make sure everybody knows that this is Ethiopian long stapled cotton, and make sure the branding has substance, which means that there is no cheating. You see a lot of people putting 10% long stapled cotton in their cotton and selling it as Egyptian cotton. That's not fair. That's cheating on the consumer. Also look for alternative materials which are very sustainable, like hemp or flocus, and even think about mixing it with your long stapled cotton to reduce the environmental impact. Discourage the imports of cheap cottons because you're hurting your own business. Then invest in water saving equipment. Egypt, you have the Nile, but you don't have a lot of water. Yeah, so we need to do everything possible to reduce the use of water and also clean the water after use. Centralized water treatment. An investment in water treatment is a big investment. If the government can do it centralized like they do in China, you pay a commission on the water and it's being cleaned. And especially, most of all, build a transparent supply chain. Transparency within a supply chain is where it all starts. Next one. So, strategies for Egyptian manufacturers: use local cotton fabrics, meet sustainable demands, and offer unique products. Yeah, this is the easiest way. Offer the buyers nice new designs based on your own fabrics and yarns that you can deliver FOB. There's still a lot of workers' abuse, problems in your factories, and you need to make sure that it's not only in your factory, but also in your neighbor's factory and in the factories of the next door village. Yeah, it's not only your responsibility, is not only your own factory, or your responsibility is your entire industry. If your neighbor has a bad working condition and the buyer comes in, his impression will be that's the way it is in Egypt, although you might have the most beautiful factory. Create a reporting system for social and environmental impact. That's data. Data is very important. Focus on BSCI and REP first, highly demanded in the EU and US markets. Switch to renewable energy sources. It's very important to reduce the dirty energy we use. Think about sustainable alternatives. Digitalization, efficiency, very important. Invest in design and product development. What's also important is make sure your universities train the people on how to translate EU trends into new designs and how to help the industry in designing products that can be offered to the buyer. Focus on communication and merchandising. I cannot highlight this enough. Communication is key to doing business. Focus on sales and marketing to promote Egypt. You're not only selling your factory, you're selling your industry and you're selling your country. Next one. For Egyptian products, well, we talked about it. Yeah, you have a unique product, your long stapled cotton. Yeah, use it. Make sure your supply chain is fully transparent. So, sportswear, one of the fastest growing product groups. Many times it's polyester based, but of course you have your cotton lycra, you have alternative fibers, and focus on also manufacturing for this product category, which is one of the fastest growing product categories at this moment. Corona has forced manufacturers to start manufacturing medical wear. There are also many medical wear manufacturers in Egypt, but it doesn't stop with delivering, manufacturing and delivering. Find ways to take back the medical waste and recycle it. That will create a closed loop for your customer and a unique proposal for you as a manufacturer. denim sector look at reducing the water. We have foam dyeing, we have lasers, we have recycled fabrics in the denim sector, which all creates unique proposals that will help you to open the doors to new markets. Partner with EU companies to recycle post-consumer waste. We showed you, for example, the company Walcott. There are many other companies. And what we see, for example, in India, that if we start recycling post-consumer waste, the physical characteristics of the products are less than if we use virgin materials. That is a challenge. But if you transfer those recycled materials to other product categories like carpets and curtains, then it is possible to recycle post-consumer waste. And the value of post-consumer waste, I can guarantee you, is much lower than virgin. So if you focus on recycling, focus on, for example, home textile products as a side business to your recycle business. Next one, Frans. Okay, Frans, this is you.
Yeah, thank you. It actually says samenvatting, which translates to a summary and questions and answers. Thank you, Gio. We've come to the end of the presentation, and there is room for questions and answers. I see you have posted some questions in the questions pane. I think one more thing before we go to questions, it's important to highlight that this presentation is only a summary of a bigger study that's published on the CBI website. So there's a lot of practical information there, a lot of background information, a lot of links to other interesting sources. So I would kindly like to ask you to also check the whole study, because there's a lot of useful information in there. So for now, thank you for listening. And Thomas, I believe you're back online. That's good to see. Yes. Are there some interesting questions?
Yes, thank you, Frans. Yeah, apologies for the technical issues I had at the start of this presentation. One remark on what you said about the study, Frans. The study will be available on our website in about 3 weeks from now. So it's not yet on the website, but of course you will receive the presentation that's given now next week, and the study will come in a few weeks. We have some questions, and the first question I want to read is certification and testing of recycled materials are difficult, as you can realize. What do you think about acceptability of products made of recycled materials by the consumer? Can you answer this question, Giovanni, or?
Yeah, Gio, I think you have a lot of experience in exporting recycled items to Europe, right?
Could you repeat it, Thomas? I didn't quite.
The question is about the acceptability of products made out of recycled materials. Are the consumers accepting these products? Because the person is saying, it's Swapan, is saying that certification and testing of recycled materials are difficult.
Yes, well, I think the market the consumers want to buy recycled, but technically making products 100% from recycled materials, the only products I've seen being able to do that is sweaters. We're talking about post-consumer waste. We're not talking about recycled polyester. For sweaters, you can make it from 100% recycled post-consumer waste. But we're still facing technical challenges to be able to meet the consumer requirements. If we do it for denims, for example, for denims, we can go up to 30–40% recycling post-consumer waste. But I can tell you, the opportunity in a recycle is not only because of the change of law, but also because of the change of the market demand. The consumers want recycled.
Okay, thank you. Next, an interesting question from Christine. She's asking, what makes China #1 exporter? How is their transition to sustainability? What is China's strength in terms of sustainability?
Shall I reply, Frans, or do you want to do it?
No, that's okay.
So the strength of China in general, of course, is that they have fabric making, accessory making, everything is possible in China. They don't need to import anything. Yeah, so that makes them highly flexible. And over the years, we've seen China developing into a country that understands the customer requirements, that is able to communicate on the same level, which makes China very easy to do business with. Yeah. Are they cheaper? No, there are other countries that are cheaper. Yeah. Are they better? Well, many times they are. And don't forget that Chinese have a high efficiency. They are able to manufacture 1,000 pieces where other factories can only manufacture 500 pieces, which still makes them the #1 supplier for the EU market. On sustainability, on certification, there are many, many very beautiful factories in China, but there are also many, many very beautiful factories in Bangladesh and other countries which comply to the EU standards. So it's not that China is better or worse than other countries in that.
Okay, thank you. I have another question, short question from Tereve. Is quality or price more sensitive for the European market?
Well, quality or price, I think both are non-negotiable. If your quality of your product, but also quality of your service and your communication is high, I can guarantee you will be able to earn more money. You will be more profitable. So it's both important, yeah. But price is always related to margin of the buyer. And a shirt is being manufactured in Turkey for 11 euros, in Portugal for 15 euros, in Bangladesh for 7 euros, and in India for 8 euros, but they all manufacture shirts. So quality for me, if we talk about quality throughout the organization, not only product, but also service, for me would be much more important than price.
But maybe I can add something. We've also included this in the study. There was a recent research by Accenture asking apparel buyers what their 5 priorities for their future sourcing strategies are, and I can mention the top 5 here. The first is speed to market, so speed and flexibility. Second is social and environmental compliancy. Excellence in product quality, so your products need to be spot on. Innovation and end-to-end value chain collaboration. So according to this particular study, these are the top 5 priorities for Western buyers in their sourcing strategies for the next years.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Frans and Giovanni. Next question is about, okay, no, I see you already asked answered the question on Morocco, Giovanni, and now I thought that was an interesting question, but I think it's already answered by writing. Okay. And then I think we go to a question that was asked in the beginning of this the presentation. It says, I would like to understand how buyers have reacted in terms of their buying preferences due to the pandemic. What measures should be monitored by manufacturers to sustain and scale up their business during this difficult period?
You want to answer that one, Gio?
Yeah, well, scaling up business is a complicated one during COVID-19, but what we see is that business is moving more towards online sales right now. The business that is being made is going through online, and the service level needed and the flexibility needed by online companies is different from retailers. Online companies start with small quantities and want you to be able to react fast on reordering, And so that is what I would do. Is first I would focus on online businesses, and then see how I can service them in a way to help them with their sales. Second thing is niche markets. We saw medical wear as a niche market that boomed during COVID, but there are also other niche markets like adaptive wear, Islamic wear, that are all still very potential markets.
Okay, thank you. I see another interesting question. It's another question about Turkey. Especially during the pandemic, Turkey was one of the least countries made perfect business. So how is the political situation disadvantage for Turkey?
Okay, let me rectify something. Perhaps political instability or political situation is not was not the smartest thing to mention. But what I wanted to say is, first of all, don't forget Turkey is the #4 biggest exporter to Europe. And why? Because they understand our trends, because they're able to react fast, because they are very close to our cultures. Doing business with somebody or a company from Turkey feels as if you're doing business with a friend. The ease of doing business in Turkey is very high. And so only compliments for Turkey. But any political unrest or Syrian refugees being used in the Turkish manufacturing processes, which is also an issue in Turkey. All this together made the buyers realize the dependence on Turkey. Yeah, and Turkey currently is also facing a low exchange rate, which of course benefits the exports. Yeah, but any unrest in any country, no matter whether it's political or not, will always make sure that the buyer will start to be more careful, will start to review the risk on doing business with that country. Yeah, so political unrest was not the best terminology to use, but perhaps a political change will always make sure a buyer will review their sources.
Yeah, if I may add, I think it's good to highlight that Turkey is just an example, and things have cooled down now. But a couple of years ago, there was some unrest, and there were some buyers maybe having second thoughts. And it's just an example that the same thing you see now in Ethiopia with the Tigray situation, and also Myanmar, for instance. So this is something that you see every once in a while across the world, popping up in different sourcing countries, and this is for sure something that buyers are thinking about. So in this case, Turkey was just an example, and things have cooled down there very much so. But it's something to realize that buyers are looking not just at your factory, but also at the country that you're working from and the image that the country has in Europe.
Okay, thank you. So we're already past the time, but we have still some questions left. So I hope it's still interesting for you to keep joining us. An interesting question from Medea. Do you see an opportunity for sub-Saharan African countries to improve their production and adopt sustainable practices?
Okay,
Gio, what do you think?
There is big opportunity. There's big opportunity. I mean, Africa in general, yeah, you have cotton, you have fabrics, you have labor. So there is big opportunity. But what we're also facing in Africa compared to China, China has a different working mentality. They work day and night. And that's where Africa in general still needs to adapt. If you want to be competitive, and that's one of the examples I mentioned, Ethiopia has a minimum wage of $50, yeah, and they are still facing challenges, export challenges. And one of the solutions for that is to become a more efficient manufacturer. And that's where Africa still needs to improve. But they will get there. Smart people, and for sure they will be able to compete in future with countries like China or Bangladesh or India, 100%.
Okay.
I totally agree. And sorry.
Go ahead, Frans.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say that I totally agree, and you can already see it happening in Ethiopia, for instance. There's a heavy investment from the government, from foreign factories. Foreign direct investments in Ethiopia happening right now, and already many large US and European buyers are setting up shop in Ethiopia and exporting from Ethiopia. So there are challenges, but you can already see it happening. I think another challenge, we've mentioned this before in the webinar, but it's an important point. I think many sub-Saharan African countries are focused on more the basic items and with large MOQs, and that is not necessarily what buyers, especially during the pandemic, are looking for. They're looking for speed and flexibility, smaller MOQs. So this next to service and efficiency might be a good thing to focus on for manufacturers in sub-Saharan Africa.
Great. A question from Kritika from Nepal. When it comes to sustainable fashion, does it need to be 100% all organic? When it comes to a market like Nepal, the resources are limited, per se, use of lining, buttons, inner dyes, and so on. So Giovanni, does it need to be 100% all organic?
No, it doesn't need to be 100% organic. You have all kinds of, and we showed it in our presentation, you have all kinds of different sustainable materials. So organic is a choice. It is not. It's not as if that's the only way forward. It's a very sustainable material because less water, no chemicals are used growing organic cotton. But there are alternatives that are just as good as organic cotton.
Okay, thank you. I think we'll already at the end of our presentation and our time. So we have not answered all questions, but most of them, and yeah, some of them we'll answer later on one-to-one. So I will start thinking my closing remarks, or do you still want to say something, Giovanni or Frans?
Just a quick thank you for all the attendees for their time and their attention, and
Yes.
CBI, of course, for having us.
Yes, same here. And please don't forget that all our reports are published on the CBI site, free of charge. You can download it, you can have a look. And if you're interested in how to find new buyers, how to open doors, download the report.
That's a very, very good remark, Giovanni. Thank you. So I'd like to close this webinar with saying that we hope this webinar, we hope this webinar has given you an insight on the transition taking place in the apparel and textile sector and the implication to the supplying countries. And we hope this webinar has inspired you to educate yourself even more on the subject of sustainable transition. Because sustainable transition in apparel is no longer be called a trend. It has become the norm for future production. So thank you for joining this webinar, and yeah, we hope to see you again in a new website from CBI in the apparel sector and home textile sector. And good luck with your businesses.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.